Let's talk bonus pools real quick, Anthony, because this was a story that has come out over the last couple of days. And I think there's a couple things to clear up, a couple things we can discuss, and there's been some interesting movement on the Dodgers international free agency pool side. For those that are unfamiliar, every team in Major League Baseball is only allotted a certain amount of money that they can spend on international free agents, of which Roki Sasaki is one. That number is based essentially on where your draft position is. The better of a team you are, the lower your bonus pool is going to be. If you've been following this, the Dodgers have one of the smallest bonus pools in all of Major League Baseball as a result of that. And so as we sit here today, the Dodgers have, as a full bonus pool, if they spend no dollars on any other international free agents, which we'll get to, it's about $5.15 million if we do a little bit of rounding. The Padres and Blue Jays are both at 6.25. So the Dodgers are at a budget disadvantage here of about $1 million, which on one hand, $1 million isn't all that much money. On the other hand, it is $1 million. The second piece of this, though, is that any of these three teams, if they knew they had a chance to get Sasaki and that he wanted to come there and that money was the issue, they could, in fact, go out and acquire more international free agency money. They can acquire it in increments of $250,000, but it is not limited to $250,000. It just has to be in increments. So $250K, $500K, $750K, $1 million, etc. And you can acquire up to 60% of your original bonus pool money. What all of this means is that, in theory, the Dodgers could increase their international free agency budget all the way up to $8.25 million via trade if they wanted to. The Padres and the Jays could get that number to $10 million. We know, Anthony, that this has not been about money. If Sasaki only cared about money, he would come over in a couple of years and sign a $300 million contract. But how big of a deal do you think it is that the Dodgers are operating from at least $1 million deficit compared to the other two finalists? And if everybody were to try and max their budget out, they'd be at almost a $2 million deficit.
Yeah, I don't think it's much of a concern. One, either of the other finalists, he's going to get hit hard on the tax anyway. Yeah. So, that gap ends up being minimal. Also, the obvious, you play in LA versus playing in San Diego or in Toronto, and the endorsement deals look much, much different than they would in the other two places. So I'm sure they already have stuff lined up. But if he ends up in LA, I think the sky's the limit on that kind of stuff. And for all three of the Japanese players now, I think that, you can, if you're the Dodgers, you're able to package sponsorships for those three. And I think if you're those three players, you figure out ways to sort of package yourselves too. Like, I think teams will come, and even though they're with different agencies or whatever, or different agents, there's going to be companies who come and say, hey, we want all three of you guys. What does it take to get that done?
Yeah.
The sky is seriously the limit for, Ohtani made, depending on what figure you believe, between $50 and $70 million last year in endorsements. I mean, if Yamamoto is what he looks like he could be, and Sasaki ends up being what he's advertised to be, I mean, yeah, there's no doubt that those guys can make $750,000 or $750 million in a season at some point, just in endorsements.
Yeah, and we've got an interview on our channel with Jiho Yu, who is a reporter based out of South Korea, talking to us about Hae-Sung Kim. And I mean, he mentioned to me, Ohtani's the most popular athlete in South Korea right now as well. So piggybacking yourself to that guy, even in a place that isn't your native country of Japan, but is another country in that part of the world in South Korea that loves baseball, you can just see the appeal and what it could mean to become such a big superstar, which, let's be honest, the Dodgers are famous, the Yankees are famous, the Red Sox are famous, the Blue Jays, the Padres, those teams just don't have the cachet abroad that organizations like the Dodgers do. One other note on the international free agency piece that I want to get your thoughts on. The Dodgers, January 15th is the day in which teams can officially sign international free agents who are eligible for that year. So in this case, 2025. If you follow this, you know that these agreements are made months, if not years in advance. And so guys like Ben Badler over at Baseball America, he's got a list of all the teams and exactly who they are expected to sign tomorrow morning, basically first thing in the morning. One thing that's interesting is over the last few days, all of the Dodgers' top guys are no longer signing with the Dodgers. Today, it was announced that their top international free agent agreement that was expected to be reached tomorrow would be back on the market and would not be signing with the Dodgers. A few days ago, there was a player who had a $1.1 million agreement with the Dodgers. He left. He got $1.8 million from the Pirates. There was another player who had a $400,000 bonus agreed to, and he's gone. And so I look at this, Anthony, and the Padres are in a very similar boat. You've got a couple teams, Anthony, that are putting all their chips in the middle of the table. Because if Sasaki chooses somebody else, not only are these teams going to miss out on Sasaki, it's possible they're going to miss out on all of the other top international free agents this year as well. And that's not insignificant.
No, it's not. It's a good way, obviously, to build your future. But I think when you're an organization in the position the Dodgers are in, it means so much less to miss out on those. Not that it doesn't mean anything, but it means so much less in contrast to a team like San Diego, where, again, money is going to be an issue now for the next few years, and Toronto, where they don't attract a lot of free agents and they have to build from within typically. And so when you miss out on those kinds of just missing a year of all of these guys can have a significant impact on what your farm system looks like. For the Dodgers, they recoup that in different ways. It's not great, but they'll recoup it in other ways.
Yeah. And keep in mind, if in the next few days Sasaki announces that he is going elsewhere, the Dodgers would then have $5.5 million that they could go back to the market and either try and recoup the guys who may have walked away, or go pick up the guys that, if the Padres or Blue Jays lost players in the process of trying to get Sasaki. So the Dodgers, in theory, will be just fine, but it is something to know. And who knows, Anthony, it's possible the Dodgers are doing all of this because they have a high degree of confidence, and maybe they know, right? Yeah. Maybe it is the information of like, we know that if we can get to a certain number, maybe it's $5 million, maybe it's trading and getting it to $8 million. But if we get to a certain dollar amount, then we get Sasaki, and then it becomes all worth it. Because as much as these other guys might be decent prospects, we're typically talking about 16-year-old kids who are like 3 or 4 years away from even coming to the United States and playing organized baseball over here. And so if you can go get Roki Sasaki, the number of lottery tickets that you would be willing to light on fire in order to go after a guy like Sasaki, who's a much more proven, much closer to a sure thing than those players are, you don't think twice or lose much sleep about it.
Yeah, for sure. And the reports came out on the Dodgers first that they were pushing all of their international signings to the side until this decision was made. And then you started to hear, from other reporters that, oh, this team's also doing this now. Some of those teams have since been crossed off the list for Sasaki. But the Dodgers were the first team, at least that were reported, that said, hey, we're telling all our guys, hang on, this is our priority right now. And you're right. That's not a terrible theory. Again, that they're doing this because they have a pretty high degree of confidence that they know where Sasaki is going to end up, and it's going to be with them.
Yeah, either they have a high degree of confidence or they think he's worth the risk. And both of those, I think you could make a compelling case.
Yeah, I think it could be both.
And it could be both. It could be both. So we'll see how this one plays out and how the bonus pool ends up impacting. Because again, the Dodgers could try and trade some prospects and go out and acquire up to about $3 million more in bonus money. So we shall see.